All right, guys, let's keep it pretty simple. Can we make sure we put our name, our date, and everything else on here? Please make sure you put your cohort on there. Make sure I can read it. And as a reminder, please don't write anything up here. This is where we put grades. And a lot of times I'm going to put comments here, so please don't doodle there. Doodle on a different page than the front page. So if we start with the domain, let me zoom in. Try to remind yourself, what's domain? X's or Y's? Domain are our X values. Range is our Y values. We're always going to use the less than inequality, and we're going to fill in. So I'm going to draw a box around this. It really doesn't have to be a box. You can just draw a line straight through, a dash line because that's an open circle. But it should be touching on all sides. So from the left side, we're at x equals 0. So 0 goes there. We do not underline because it's an open circle. And on the right side, we're at 2. And we do underline because it's a closed circle. Then again, low to high, from low to high. The y value is -2. The high value is 4. We're going to underline the closed circle, which is at 4. X, Y, less than, less than, less than, less than. Go ahead and draw my box. I'm doing a solid line. Even though this part's open, if there's even one dot that it's allowed to touch, it's a solid line. -2 to 2. Closed on the -2. Low is -4 to +4. Underline both of them. Because this curve is solid, that's why this is underlined. If it had been a dashed line, then this would not have been underlined. But we don't do dashed lines in Algebra 1, so don't worry about it. These ones are super easy. You're just going to plug in whatever it tells me. Here it's telling me to plug in -4, and I'm going to be plugging it in anywhere I see an n. You must write down the step where you're replacing the n to become a -4. You definitely need parentheses. Now from here, you can just put this part in a calculator and it will give you a number. I'm going to just do it by hand. 3 times -4, -12 plus 1. Different signs means I'm going to be doing subtraction. 12 take away 1, it's going to be 11, but it's going to stay negative because I had more negatives than positive. And that's my answer. -1. I'm going to replace all the a's with it. And that's really important that you put parentheses because you're going to see that the negative squared is actually going to turn into a positive. So g of -1 equals a -1 times a -1 is a +1. A -5 times a -1 is a +5. G of -1 equals 1 plus 5 is 6. Easy. You'll notice too that I've started putting the teak that you're going to be tested on right here. You'll notice that this is covering 2 different teaks. And so is this one. They're the same teak, but this one is geometric and these ones are arithmetic. So we need to find, for this one, it tells me to find the common difference. So that's just how much I'm adding or subtracting to a given term. So it looks like we're basically adding 100, but it's negative. So my common difference is a subtract 100. Then I need to find the explicit formula and the term name. It's easier to find the explicit formula before the term named, so I'm going to do that. My explicit formula is a sub n equals a plus, I'm going to say a1 plus d times n minus 1. That's your explicit formula every single time. And we just plug in what we have. A sub n equals -6 minus 100 times n minus 1. Now there is 2 more steps I'm going to take with this formula. This is how I would normally write it, but I'm looking through the star and they like to distribute this and then combine like terms. So it would be a sub n equals -6, -100 times n, -100 n. -100 times a -1 is plus 100. Now what I can do is I can put that 6 and the 100 together. So a sub n is equal to 100 take away 6. That's just 94. 94 minus 100 n. That's my explicit formula. And that would be how they would write it on the star. Now for the term name, I just plugged in whatever number they gave me. In this case, they gave me 20. So a sub 20, I have to write this. This is a label and it must be there. Equals 94 minus 100 times 20. So now this is just like one of these problems where we just plug in the number. A sub 20 equals 94 minus 2,000. (94 minus 2,000), that is just -1,906. So I've got my common difference, I've got my explicit formula, and I've got my term named. I need to go again on this one. So the first thing we're going to do again is ask ourselves, what are we adding or subtracting by? So my common difference here is just 2. My explicit formula is just going to be my first term plus 2 times n minus 1. Distribute that 2. A sub n is equal to 31 plus 2n minus 2. Combine like terms. 31 take away 2. A sub n is equal to 29 plus 2n. I've got my explicit formula. I've got my common difference. Make sure you're writing small and make sure you're writing neat. Now I need to find the term named. A sub 24. So that means the 24th term, which means if we went through and we added 2 24 times, that's a lot of times to be adding it, where would we end up? So this is our first, second, third, fourth. Does anybody want to do that? Because I'm not a big fan. 2 times 24. A sub 24 is equal to 29 plus 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 8 is 8. 48 plus 29, 77? Yeah, 77. And that's it. Now we're going to do the geometric ones. So arithmetic is when we add and subtract. Arithmetic is when we multiply and divide. So you're going to notice that here we're multiplying. What are we multiplying by? Whatever we're multiplying by, that's your common ratio. So R is equal to, it looks like I'm multiplying by 2. So that's my common ratio. My explicit formula is always a times r to the n minus 1. Your exponent must be higher and smaller than your base. It cannot just be a mess next to it. So a sub n is equal to my first term times r to the n minus 1. I have my explicit formula. I have my common ratio. I now need to find the term named. I'm going to plug in 10. A sub 10 is equal to negative 3 times 2 to the 10 minus 1. Put just this part in your calculator. You don't need menu anything. If you put menu something in, it will not work. You're going to put in negative 3 parenthesis 2 parenthesis. To get this up, you need to press the little up arrow. It looks like this, the little caret. I don't have a calculator with me to show you, but that's what you need to do. Then once you put that in, you're going to go negative 1536 is what you should get out. Done. Next one. Again, what is your first term? What is your explicit formula? My ratio is multiplying by 4. My first term is 3. So I have my explicit formula and my ratio. To find the 10th term, I'm simply just going to say a sub 10 is equal to 3 times 4 to the 10 minus 1. A sub 10 is equal to 4 to the 9th power. Definitely don't know that. I'm using a calculator on my phone. And this is what I'm getting out. Now make sure you have all 3 of those things. If you're having a hard time figuring out what the ratio is, just divide any 2 numbers that are next to each other. Put the second number over the first one. So for example, r would equal 12 over 3, which is 4. I could also have done 192 over 48. See the second number over the first number, and that would have also given me 4. We could do the same thing here. Negative 24 over negative 12. You'll see we're going to get 2. So if you're having a hard time figuring out r, that's a little trick. Just take any 2 that are next to each other, take the second one in the sequence, and divide it by the first one. Okay, be good for the sub, guys. Thank you.